Hey guys, welcome to another episode. As you can see, I've got some Famicom systems in front of me here. This video is a request by a user from the Racket Boy forums by the name of Para. I believe that's right anyways. And he wanted me to talk about some of the features of the systems, how much I paid for it, and a couple other things, so I figured I'd go through and talk a little bit about the systems. For those of you not familiar with the Famicom system, it is essentially the Japanese version of the NES. When Nintendo of America decided to get that system brought over here, they changed the NES look completely because they didn't want computer in it, because they really didn't want people thinking it was a computer game system, but more of a video entertainment system. Kind of weird, I know, but with the whole video game crash, retailers were very, very skeptic on getting another video game system, so Nintendo kind of skillfully tricked retailers into stocking these games and kind of bringing back the video game universe as far as sales go and bringing back the industry from the crash. But anyways, the first Famicom system on the left here is my first unit. I became kind of interested and obsessed with getting it after watching Game Center CX, which is a Japanese game show or TV show that has a guy who's essentially trying to beat old retro games, and they're usually for the Famicom system. And the guy sucks. It usually takes him like 13 to 14 hours to beat really simple games sometimes. And I was just interested in watching him play, and I thought the system was so cool looking, and they actually talked about a lot of different games that were on the system that never came out over here in America. So my interest in getting the system was kind of raised just because I was always a big fan of the NES. It was really my first true addictive love into video games, and I had to get one. Unfortunately, going on eBay, you'll find a lot of times that the shipping for the actual unit is more than the unit itself. And, you know, trying to pay 50 bucks for something and then paying another 40 or 50 to ship the unit over here is just insane to me. And I've seen Japanese prices fluctuate so much for shipping. I don't know why that reason is, but usually anytime I see systems on there, to ship it from Japan is just insane. So I kind of lost interest in picking up the system just because I wasn't going to go that far out of my way to pay for stuff. Enter the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2009, and I was actually able to find a system from the guys at the Famicom Dojo. Sean Corse of the Famicom Dojo actually sold it to me. He was running a booth for Rising stuff, and they sold me a Famicom unit, this one right here, for about 50 bucks. Came with the AC adapter as well as a couple of game cartridges. Nothing too great, but game cartridges nonetheless, and he assured me that the thing worked. And I bought a couple additional Famicom games like Akira, Castlevania, and a couple other things, Castlevania 3 actually. And I was on my way home and started playing the system. Now, one thing that you need to know about this system is it's RF only. It does not have AV jacks on the back of it. So there's no composite yellow, and there is no audio out on this thing. Everything is done all through the RF. Graphically and audio-wise, it's all done through RF. So you got to have a TV, of course, which is pretty much any TV capable of taking in a RF signal. And you also have to turn your TV to channel 95, 96. I guess some people actually have to turn theirs to 98, 99. It really depends. So you gotta make sure your TV can do that, which most TVs can. I know there's a small range of them that can't, but you're gonna need to turn that. It doesn't go on the standard 3.4 like most of the old retro systems did. And that's pretty much it. You just gotta make sure you have the proper AC adapter for it, and you're pretty much good to go. So I played a couple Japanese games, thought it was pretty interesting, and enjoyed the system. Now you notice that there is some differences from the unit on the left and the unit on the right, and the first obvious one being the cosmetic portion of it. This system is very yellow compared to my newer system. This system is very white. Now I don't know if it's like the NES's. NES's for some reason, because of the plastic actually colors yellow from the gray and looks kind of bad. But cigarette smoke from the nicotine can actually do the same thing, I guess. And I'm not sure, maybe the previous owners of these systems were really bad smokers and that's what discolored it, or it's a production thing. But it's kind of yellow, and it's also missing the extension port cover. This is for controllers, zappers, and like Rob the Robot, he would plug into there. And it's missing that, so it wasn't a complete system, but as a gateway drug into my Famicom system, it was a cool pickup. The second unit I got from another guy on the Racket Boy forums by the name of Brita. He was in Japan for quite some time and picked up a hell of a lot of video game stuff. I used to share some awesome pictures of his trips to Japan. Crazy, crazy stores when it comes to Japan there in video games. Just amazing stuff. Almost made me shed a tear looking at that stuff, like all these Famicom games on the wall and everything. But we got to talking, and I was actually looking for a game called Bio Senshi Dan. And we were talking back and forth, and he said he couldn't really find the game. It would be a little bit more expensive. Was he looking at it for anything else? And I said, yeah, I kind of like a more cosmetically clean Famicom. And he got back to me, and I think he only charged me $35 and like $25 for shipping to get this thing over here, and this thing is complete. I paid about $50 for this, $55 with a couple of games, so this was a pretty good deal, but I paid about $50 to $60 to get this system complete in good cosmetic condition, and I mean complete system-wise, not box or anything. And then we'll talk a little bit into the Famicom disk system here. This I've seen go for a lot of money, especially if they've been rebuilt. Shipping, again, can be pretty high on these things. It uses two sources of power. Depending on which route you want to go, you can either power it by C batteries or you can get another AC adapter for it. The problem with these units is that they are run by belts, and the belts stretch, the belts break, the belts melt, and after a while your disk system doesn't work, and the actual pulley system on this unit can fail as well. So, I'm not sure, I don't quite remember who sold this to me. I believe it was on Racket Boy. But what actually happened was the guy said he had a broken disk system. He didn't have a Famicom to test it with to know for sure, but he was almost positive that it was broken and needed new belts. I figured, you know, for $30 plus a pretty cheap shipping price, I'm going to get it because it at least makes my Famicom look complete. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. Well, bought it, got delivered, and plugged it into my Famicom, got some batteries for it, thing turned on no problem. Popped in Section Z, which, if I remember right, wasn't actually Section Z, I think it was Zaxxon, but the game started up no problem. I read the discs without any issues, and about 15 Famicom discs later, I still haven't had a problem reading this, so this thing works perfectly. So I got this thing for a hell of a deal, and cheap considering the fact that it actually works. Later, I picked up a twin Sharp Famicom and didn't have luck, so it was kind of like a karma thing. The cartridge reader didn't work on there, got stuck with a white screen, and the disc portion of it doesn't work at all because it's missing several key components out of the motor. So, kind of got screwed in the end, but at least the original Famicom disk system portion works, which is awesome. Just to kind of show you what the Famicom disk system games look like, this is the cover art. Out of here. This is what the actual games look like. And as you can see where the actual disc area is on the top here, it does not have a protective tab that would cover the disc from dust, which caused a lot of failure for these. Also, another reason we didn't get the disc system over here is because most of the games could be released in a cartridge format because we had battery backups. And the battery backup in the actual system saved the data, so there really wasn't a need for a floppy disk system to save data for some of those longer games. So, never made it over here, unfortunately. So, I was kind of lucky. I got my entire Famicom set up for just a little over $150, I want to say, so not a bad deal at all. If you want me to do a couple more comparisons, I will. This is your standard NES cartridge, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, and this is what Castlevania Dracula's Curse looks like for the Famicom system. And this actually has an expanded chip on there. The music sounds a little bit different. And that's another thing about the Famicom disk system is because it has, I believe, 2 more channels that it can use for music. Some of the music sounds a little different, some better, some worse. I usually actually prefer the original, not the Famicom, but the NES music, but to each their own. Now, having a huge NES library, I picked up this NES to Famicom converter so I can play my NES games on there. I think I paid about $15 for that. Works pretty well. I also have a Hudson pad here. And this is kind of like a TURBOGRAFX-CD pad for the Famicom, and I think I paid about 30 bucks for this. It's kind of beat up, but it works really well. So at the end of the day, if you're looking just to pick up a Famicom for the hell of it, you know, if you're choosing between NES or Famicom, do I think you should pick up a Famicom over the NES? I'm going to say no, because NES is going to be a lot cheaper, and you're going to be able to get a lot more games cheaper as well. Famicom, you know, it's going to be harder to get unless you're at a convention. It's going to cost you a little bit more money, and if you want to be able to play everything, you're going to have to get the disc system, which is going to be a lot of work if you can't guarantee that you're going to get a system that's going to work. Really, it comes down to a collector's thing. For me personally, I just wanted to have one in my collection because I'm a big Nintendo nut, and it's kind of the origin of Nintendo, at least in its first big console. And that's why I kind of want to pick it up. But I do play this more than I play my NES just because I have the converter. One other thing that is kind of a downfall if you don't have a TV that's really close to you is that the cords on these things are actually tethered into the system, and the cord is not very long at all. So you'll find yourself wishing you could get right in front of your TV and have the system right in front of it. It is not made like the NES where you got some footage on the cord and you can actually play on your couch and look at the TV. So it's up close and personal, burning out your retinas like it should be. So that's another thing you should worry about if you don't have a proper setup. There's a couple sites you can actually check out if you're more interested in the Famicom stuff, and I'll switch over and do another video or another clip of that when I shut the camera down here. I'm kind of playing with the fact that YouTube supposedly has 15 minutes now on their videos, so we will see if that's the case, or if I'm going to have to do a two-parter on this. If not, then I will just put the links on the description itself, but hopefully this video was at least somewhat interesting and somewhat helpful to the requester. And again, if I don't do a second parter here, I'll upload another video shortly. So really quick, I wanted to talk about a couple quick links that you can go to kind of broaden your knowledge about the Famicom system. The first one is from Sean Kors, actually, who sold me my first Famicom system from the Famicom Dojo, and that is famicomdojo.tv, which is actually part of Pout TV. Very, very awesome show, very informative, talks about the history of the Famicom, the comparisons, a lot of different accessories, and all the different models of the Famicom itself. Another good one is one of my subscribers, and actually I subscribe to him as well. He always has some interesting Famicom stuff. He's a big Famicom nut just like me, and that is Fat Funk, and he is from China, I believe, and picks up a lot of interesting stuff Famicom system wise. I really like his content. He always picks up some cool games, so check him out. And the last one is the kind of the legend in the video game YouTube community, and that's Luke Morris. Has a lot of repair videos on the Famicom disk system and a couple other great videos like the Famicom Repeater and more. So definitely check him out as well. Check out all three, and hopefully this video helped you out if you're deciding on getting a Famicom or if you're just more interested in the system. But check out those links. Far more informative than I can be in a short 15-minute span. Check them out. This has been another episode. We'll be back soon. Peace.